Hola, querido público del ETREUM Horror Film Fest 2024. Esta noche de domingo culminamos nuestros 3 días de lo mejor del cine fantástico aquí en Colombia y pues para cerrar con broche de oro tenemos una invitada súper especial. Ella es una maquilladora profesional, es estadounidense, ha trabajado en películas como Guardianes de la Galaxia Volumen 3 y La Mansión Embrujada del 2023. Así que démosle un aplauso para Amber Michael. Amber, welcome to the ETREUM Horror Film Fest 2024. Tell me, how's your day going so far?
Hola. I'm pretty good. I have been doing a lot of planning for some fun things that I have coming up.
Bueno, nos dice Amber que nos envía un saludo muy especial y nos dice que justamente está planeando cosas muy importantes para proyecticos que se avecinan. So, Amber, as every single artist that have been in this place with us, every single art piece has a beginning. So, can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings in the art industry, your career? What was that moment where you felt compelled to start in the beautiful art of makeup and effects?
Sure. It is actually a long history. I started doing theater when I was 5 years old, and that's kind of where it started for me. And then I went to university for musical theater. I was in theater all through high school, and I started doing makeup on my friends in high school. So I've been doing makeup for a long time and almost 20 years professionally. I lived in North Carolina, and that's where I started doing a lot of I worked at a haunted house for a long time, and that's where I learned a lot of special effects and how to build creatures and bodysuits, and I worked in a lab. I worked on a lot of music videos there and commercials and independent films, and it wasn't until I moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2016 that I worked on my very first union production, which was The Walking Dead. That was the very first major big set I'd ever been on, and it was a beast to say the least. There were many times when I thought I would die of heat exhaustion. It was definitely an experience, and I'm glad it was my first big union production because it really broke me in, and I joined the union a few years later, and the rest has kind of been history.
That's wonderful, Amber. So I'm going to translate the answer to our audience here in Colombia. Ella nos está diciendo que básicamente desde pequeñita tuvo la afición por el maquillaje. Ella de hecho empezó desde muy temprana edad a involucrarse en el teatro y de hecho al llegar a la escuela secundaria ella se encargaba de hacer el maquillaje para sus compañeros. Entonces, por varios años ella empezó a aprender de la profesión y pues durante el transcurso de 20 años fue perfeccionando sus habilidades hasta que en el 2016 ella llegó a la ciudad de Atlanta, Georgia, donde tuvo su primer trabajo como miembro de la Unión en un pequeñito programa llamado The Walking Dead. Y ella nos cuenta que fue una experiencia bastante épica, pero también muy abrumadora, que de hecho en los primeros meses ella pensaba que iba a morir de exhaustión, de cansancio por el calor, porque ciertamente las condiciones eran bastante fuertes, pero que fue una experiencia que le abrió los ojos a lo que sería su ilustre carrera hoy en día. All right, Amber. So, The Walking Dead obviously is one of the most popular shows, like for the last 14 years. Yeah, it's incredible to believe that it's been 14 years since the first episode came out. But obviously, looking at your resume and seeing your evolution as a makeup artist, obviously you have landed into big territory now, because from going to theater to small films to being in one of the biggest television projects ever, you also have landed some of the biggest films in recent memory, and one of them obviously is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, in which you were part of a big team of makeup artists, and there is even a world Guinness record for the most amount of prosthetics applied into a single movie production. So please tell our audience how how was that experience. But before that, I'm going to translate the question to our audience. Lo que le estoy preguntando a Amber es que ya que ella estuvo en The Walking Dead, que es uno de los programas de televisión más populares de los últimos 14 años, pues ella ha tenido una gran evolución con respecto a su hoja de vida, y uno de los proyectos que más destaca es Guardianes de la Galaxia Volumen 3, donde ella fue parte de un gran equipo de artistas, y de hecho este tiene el récord Guinness de ser la película con la mayor cantidad de prótesis aplicadas para una sola producción. Entonces lo que le acaba de preguntar es cómo fue su experiencia con la producción dirigida por James Gunn. You can go on now.
Working on Guardians was such a wonderful experience. I got to be very lucky in that a lot of my friends were working. We were a big team, and um still when I work with my friends who we worked on that together, we talk about it like that was such a rare experience. Everyone, we were working with legends on that. It was really amazing. Everyone came and they were all so talented, and they didn't show up with ego. Everyone was just happy to be there, and we all got along. When we wrapped, we like hugged each other and cried, and that like never happens. We're like usually like, okay, peace, we're done. I'll see you on the next one. But it was such an amazing experience, and it was so fun because I remember the day that they came in and told us that we had gotten the world record. We were in the middle of working, and so like we got the world record, we weren't even done applying. I don't remember how far out from wrapping we were, but we weren't even finished, and we had already gotten the world record. And we were like simultaneously working on the Christmas special at the same time. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's a lot of fun. The Guardians Christmas special, Kevin Bacon is in it, and that was a lot of fun. It was so fun because we were just doing so many different types of aliens, and we had little kids, and we had the nowhere people who lived in nowhere, and we were just doing like blue people and pink people, and then aliens with like all these like crazy spikes, and it would be like we would do multiple things throughout the day that weren't even related to one another. And then we went to the humanimals, which were these human animal hybrid people, and that was just so much fun. I got to help with a couple of different creatures, but the main creatures that I did were the turtles, and they were so fun. We were also exhausted. Our call times were like 3:30 in the morning. The person who helped me do the makeup application would literally hold the actor's head while she slept at like 4 a.m. while we applied all the prosthetics and stuff. It was so much fun. It was exhausting, so much fun, so worth it. A very wonderful memory for sure.
I have a small question about that. What time did you guys slept? Because
Uh, well, they were usually pretty good about allowing us. There were so many of us usually, and this was 2022, so it's been, a couple of years now. Um, so there were so many of us, and they were usually pretty good about kind of like splitting us up into shifts. So we would still get there at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes we would have, a little bit later call times, but that was usually kind of the vibe. And then we would, power through everyone, and then like a group of us would like take the first shift, and we would go to set and like do all the touches and everything. And then like usually after lunch we would like break, and then the people who like stayed back would go to set. So there was kind of like some downtime, sort of like after you get through the rush of everyone. um Things usually kind of like you kind of take some downtime in the middle of a day when you're working on a production like that. And then I know I slept that had to have happened. I'm sure that the thing is too is that studio's like in South Georgia, which is like an hour away from where most people live in the Atlanta metro area. And it's at, it's at Trilith, which used to be called Pinewood. It's where all the Marvel, well, most of the Marvel Disney stuff gets shot. So that was on top of the call time, your hour travel there and hour travel home. I was at least getting 6 hours of sleep, hopefully, usually. It's a blur. I try not to think about that part of it. And
Oh,
our coordinator was really great. Like the department head was really wonderful, and the coordinator was really wonderful. And like being like, who needs to go home early? Because there were so many of us. Once we went through makeup, they were good about like breaking us and like letting some people leave if they needed to go or whatever. So it was a really great set to be a part of. I'll be exhausted any day to work with that team again.
all right, so I'm gonna translate this one to the audience. Bueno, ella nos está diciendo que la experiencia fue muy desafiante, pero fue muy divertida. Ella, pues, ellos cuando escucharon sobre el récord Guinness, de hecho, no habían terminado de grabar la película. No recuerda exactamente hacia qué porcentaje de película habían terminado en ese momento, pero básicamente fue una sorpresa para todos ellos. Era un equipo bastante grande, como ella me lo menciona, y ciertamente fue una experiencia que ella jamás olvidará. Ella recuerda que de todos modos fue muy desafiante porque los llamados para los artistas de maquillaje eran a las 3:30 de la mañana. Así que habían muchas ocasiones en que ellos sostenían las cabezas de los actores mientras estaban durmiendo. Y al final, pues eran jornadas extensas, pero hubo una muy buena química entre el equipo, hubo mucha empatía. Digamos, los jefes allá en los estudios Pinewood en Georgia eran muy amables. Ella también me menciona que ellos grabaron la película en los estudios Pinewood que quedan en el sur de Georgia, que es como a una hora de la parte urbana, del casco urbano de la ciudad de Atlanta. Así que obviamente era muy desafiante porque tenían básicamente una hora de viaje, tanto de ida como de vuelta, que ella durmió aproximadamente unas 6 horas durante el rodaje, pero que al final volvería a sentirse exhausta tan solo con trabajar con el equipo con el que trabajó en Guardianes Volumen 3. Y ella también dice que trabajó mucho con los humanimals, que son las creaciones del alto evolucionario, especialmente en los híbridos entre hombre y tortuga, pero que al final del día fue un trabajo bastante colaborativo entre todos los miembros y artistas del departamento de maquillaje. So, since this is a horror film festival, obviously horror has always been linked to makeup effects somehow. We've always had legends like Dick Smith, Tom Savini, Rick Baker. So and you also mentioned me that you've had experience in a haunted mansion, and you eventually got to do an actual haunted mansion movie. So let us know more about that experience because that should have been really fun for you.
Working on the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very surreal experience for me actually, because I got to come in and I was brought in by the department head. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I think I was like hired for this project that we didn't end up filming. I was hired in like November and we filmed it in like March the following year. And so I basically was brought in for three specific characters, and I worked with does I was hired by the department head. I worked with the designer of the film who did all of the characters, all of the costumes. He designed all of the hair and makeup. He's phenomenal. I am blanking on his name right now because I'm terrible with names and I feel awful about that. But he is a phenomenal, really wonderful um, human being. He had two-dimensional sketches and the faces were like this big. and I had to translate that little tiny face. I was like blowing it up on my iPad and it was like losing all of the detail. And so I literally had to like work off of this and make it translate to a 3D face. I came in and I did a test. And the model that I had, her name is Ariel, and she's the actor. She was one of the main ones. She's a dancer. They performed. They're the Can Can girls. And I basically got to design his 2D face and turn it into a 3D render. And the department head came in, the hair department head came in, and the designer came in. And when he saw the makeup that I did on my test day, he said, "This is better than I designed. This is better than I imagined." And I was just like beaming. The dancer and the model Ariel was like beaming because we had been working together for a couple hours that day, and I had been like nervous at the beginning of the day, and then I had worked on the design for months leading up to it. And then I did the test and then like I wanted to perfect it. So I was still working on it before we shot it in March. And it was 3 models that we had to replicate over 3 days, I believe, 3 days of shooting. And that was such a surreal experience because the days that we shot that, we were literally shooting in the haunted mansion, and they had built that again at Trilith Studios at what used to be called Pinewood. And I cried when I walked in. It was phenomenal. Like the details were completely immaculate. The floors were beautiful. Cobwebs and all of the like just the details were mind blowing, and it looks exactly how you imagine the ride to look if you were to be able to get off and like walk through it. It was so mind blowing. All of the ghosts were there. Danny DeVito had this little um digital camera, and he was walking around like a little kid taking pictures of everybody, like Keith was taking pictures. One of the models that I did, or one of the actors that I did, came running in, and she was like, "Oh my God, you'll never believe Lakeith made us pose with him and take all these photos." I wish he would post them. I would love to see those pictures. But it was just a surreal experience because all of the special effects, makeup, everything was practical. They had the people dancing in the dining room. They were literally suspended with black wires. You couldn't even see them in the room with the people. So there were like ghosts floating around the room. Rosario Dawson was there. She is a phenomenal human being. Um, it was it was a really wonderful, excellent experience, and I'll treasure it forever. And
That's
then, oh, not to, and then to mention, the girl that I did the makeup on, the main girl, she made it on like the poster. She was on all the billboards. She's like right over Rosario Dawson's shoulder. I was super stoked about that.
you could point out that those promotional pieces and say, "That's my baby."
Yeah, yeah. And it sucks because all of that stuff came out during the strikes. So we couldn't say anything about it or make any kind of hoopla about it. Like literally everything the biggest things that I worked on in my career all came out like right at during the writer's strikes.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was that
cool.
was a very weird time,
It was a
wasn't
very
it?
strange time. It's still a strange time. It's still a strange time.
Yeah. It almost feels like a Doors, like a song from the Doors.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna translate this one. Lo que Amber nos estaba hablando, bueno, yo le estaba preguntando, bueno, empezamos la pregunta con respecto al maquillaje y su relación con el terror, porque justamente estos son dos cosas que compaginan muy bien desde el inicio, ya sea por el trabajo de Lon Chaney Jr. o por Boris Karloff, y yendo a artistas de maquillaje como Dick Smith, Rick Baker o Tom Savini. Entonces, ella pues nos mencionaba que cuando empezó su experiencia como maquilladora, ella se especializó en mansiones embrujadas y justamente tuvo la oportunidad de trabajar en la versión fílmica del 2023 que se estrenó por Walt Disney Pictures. Entonces, ella nos comentaba que al principio estaba con otro proyecto que al final no se cuajó. La llamaron para hacer unas pruebas de maquillaje. Ella pues trabajó con una modelo llamada Ariel. Hicieron unas pruebas durante aproximadamente 2 horas. Luego llegaron las cabezas principales del departamento de arte y vieron lo que Amber había propuesto y les encantó. Así que Amber pues aseguró su puesto en la película. Ella cuando llegó al set de esta mansión embrujada básicamente quedó impactada al punto en que casi lloraba, porque los sets eran prácticos, digamos que todavía habían cosas muy de la vieja escuela y eso le emocionó bastante. El maquillaje estaba ahí, era algo físico, digamos que los fantasmas si flotaban por el aire usaban unos cables que ayudaban a vender la ilusión y pues que tuvo una experiencia muy bacana, muy interesante con los actores Danny DeVito, que se la pasaba con una cámara digital, él siendo muy chiquito y muy gracioso, la Kit Stanfield que tomaba fotos cada nada y que ya aún está preguntando cuándo las va a publicar, y Rosario Dawson, que ella dice que es un maravilloso ser humano, que realmente hizo un gran ambiente en el set. Amber también dice que está muy orgullosa porque el diseño del espectro que ella hizo para esta película terminó en todas las piezas publicitarias de la mansión embrujada. Sin embargo, y lo amargo de esto es que ella no pudo disfrutar mucho de su proceso, de poder hablar del proceso de hacer esta película, porque esta cinta desafortunadamente se estrenó durante la huelga de guionistas y actores del 2023. Entonces, para ella eso fue un poquito devastador y que ella dice que sus trabajos más importantes llegaron en una de las épocas más extrañas de Hollywood, pero que aún así es una experiencia que va a atesorar. All right, Amber. So it's been a very interesting career because you work on not only genre like in The Walking Dead or Lovecraft Country, which is another television project that you were involved in, which also came in a very strange time, in a time where we all felt that we were going to die by a deadly virus, like in the movie 12 Monkeys. Uh, but also you've been in other types of films that are not necessarily about monsters, such as Pain Hustlers, which came out, if I'm not wrong, either last year or earlier this year. It's the latest film by David Yates, is very well known as a director of the latest Harry Potter movies. But this time around, he did like took an interesting turn, going back to his roots as a drama director. And looking at your IMDb, the credit that I see here is actually very interesting because, and there is actually an anecdote you spoke of in your Instagram about a body paint that eventually did not came out in the final cut. Is that right? So can you tell
That's
us more
correct.
about your experience about that?
That was probably alongside really that whole run of work. I just was coming home, The Guardians and then Haunted Mansion, and I got to work on the final Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then and I don't even remember the order of this. I was on set working on Echo, which is a TV show that just came out not that long ago. Native American superhero. And I got a call from this woman who was department head for Paint Hustlers, and they were looking for a body painter. And she saw my work and gave all of my work to David. And it wasn't just me, there were multiple other body painters in the running, and he chose me especially. And then I got to have multiple meetings with him, and he had a few designs picked out, and I wasn't really keen on any of the designs that he had chosen, any of the way that he wanted to go. And so I told him, I put together like all these mood boards and like put together some stuff that was like pulling from like street art and different like cultural art and paintings that I had done and like body painting that I had done. And I put together these mood boards and like street textures and peeling paint textures. And just like I work from like just, you know, different things that inspire me. And I put together these mood boards and I brought them to him and I said, I know that this is, you know, you have a vision for this and you're bringing me on because this is my specialty. If you allow me to have the full creative reins with this, I will give you something way better than what you have proposed to me. And he was like, okay, you have free reign to design it. And he was really cool with that. We only had one other meeting after I finalized the design, and then everything else kind of happened over emails. The actor actually came to my home studio, Amit, and we did the test here. I shot it here in the photography studio that I used to have here. And I did two tests before I actually did the test on the actor. And then we submitted everything, and David was just like over the moon about it. He said it, you know, it was so beautiful and he really loved it. And he was super sweet about my work. And when he was talking to me about my work, he treated me like I was a peer. He talked to me and he was like, I just love your work so much and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, on a Zoom with David Yates, and I was just like, I love your work. So I literally was having just moments where I would like get out of these meetings and then like go sit on the living room couch and then be like pinching myself and like trying to process what was happening out loud. The day of shooting comes and I have my best friend who assisted me, and it was a long day and things kept getting moved around and pushed, and Amit stayed in that makeup for at least 10 hours. At least 10 hours he was in that makeup, and then they shot it, and shooting it took another hour or so. um Everyone was there that day: Catherine O'Hara, Emily Blunt, a few other people that I can't remember. It was a whirlwind. But it it ended up being that David wanted to add another scene. I was back working on True Lies at the time, and they reached back out to me saying they wanted to add another scene where the actor is like in this full body paint and he's like riding in a limousine. It was just like all of this stuff. And so the idea is that he's like this buttoned up business guy and that he does some drugs and gets crazy at this party and is like, I want to be body painted, and he lets loose at this party. Um, and it was funny, and like it sometimes happens, it got cut from the movie, and that's a bummer, but I'm glad that I had the experience and I have the pictures, and uh it was a fun time. It was good.
Can you show at least one picture of it, or
Yeah, yeah.
at least it won't be cut in here, I promise.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it was fun because the collaboration of like getting that blue that I used on him is like one of my most favorite blues by Wolf FX, and it's like it when you see it in the light, like a picture doesn't do it justice. It's like iridescent, and when we shot it, it was like this huge party scene that was like by this pool, and they had all of these like LED lights, and the way that the lights moved across his skin looked so beautiful and so cool. Um, but yeah, it was fun. I'm glad that I have the experience of doing it. I'm glad that I have David Yates' contact information in my phone.
Le estaba preguntando a Amber con respecto a una película llamada Pain Hustlers que pueden encontrarla en Netflix. Está protagonizada por Emily Blunt y Chris Evans y está dirigida por David Yates, que es el director de las más recientes entregas de Harry Potter y Animales Fantásticos. Aquí le pregunté por esta anécdota porque justamente ella no solo ha trabajado en cine y televisión de género, sino también se ha aventurado en dramas. Y para este drama ya se le encomendó hacer una pintura corporal para un personaje en esta película. Entonces ella presentó sus ideas, contrataron un modelo, ella en su propio estudio hizo unas experimentaciones basadas en texturas como arte urbano, ella usó diferentes inspiraciones y al final a David Yates le gustó bastante el resultado final que le dio Amber. Sin embargo, a la hora de grabar la escena, pues la escena se terminó grabando con el actor se suponía que en el guión se había intoxicado en una fiesta y decidió manejar su limusina cubierto por pintura corporal o body paint. Y la cuestión es que por cuestiones de ritmo la escena terminó cortándose, pero pues ella aún así sigue orgullosa de la experiencia que tuvo en Paint Hustlers y de hecho está muy orgullosa porque tiene el número de información de David Yates, quien fue un director bastante eh, un director que la apoyó bastante durante este proceso y que ciertamente vio mucho su talento y que no dudó ni un segundo de ella, pero pues ella dice que son cosas que a veces pasan, que a veces se tiene que cortar cierto material de las películas pues para poder tener un mejor ritmo. Entonces, vamos a llegar, ya llegamos a la fase final de nuestra entrevista con la gran Amber Michael. So, Amber, um, obviously, your body of work keeps expanding every single year. What's next for Amber Michael? Where can we glance your latest work in the future? Because indeed, what you've done in TV and film is something really special. I believe we have another great makeup artist in the way, but obviously the versatility of your work is something that is very impressive, and for even someone as young as you who has a lot of experience is very great. So
Oh, thank
what can
you.
we
Am I young? Um, yeah, so I have worked on a couple of projects the last couple of months. I'm not really at liberty to disclose what they are right now. But they've been some really cool stuff. One was a TV show and one was a Marvel film. And so that'll be coming out. I don't know when the TV show wrapped. I'm sure they have some reshoots to do. The Marvel show left Atlanta, went to Utah, and then I think now they're in Malaysia. So I can't really talk about those things. Maybe I shouldn't have said where it went either. But I have a couple more things like this. I'm going to be doing a couple more panels, a couple more speaking engagements. I really enjoy this type of thing. Hopefully, guesting on some podcasts. We'll see. And speaking of podcasts, I started my own. It is called Beyond the Makeup Chair, and it is all about film production, TV production, but from the perspective of a makeup artist. It's not exclusively just about makeup, but I'm a makeup artist, so I can't get away from that subject a little bit. Yeah, I have some personal projects lined up with some photographer friends of mine of some makeups and some photo shoots that I've really been wanting to do for several years. So hopefully the schedules will align. We're working out details now to get some fun things down. And there are a few other potentials in the wings, but nothing solid that I can talk about.
yes, otherwise it's classified.
It's classified.
Top secret.
They're breaking into my house now, just hearing me have a discussion, even hinting at it.
That's really wonderful, Amber. So I'm gonna translate one more time to our viewers. Bueno, le estaba preguntando, bueno, primero que todo estaba destacando mucho el gran trabajo que ha hecho Amber en todos estos años de carrera. Ciertamente una mujer tan joven ha logrado tantas cosas, tanto en televisión como en cine. También le estaba preguntando sobre futuros proyectos y ella me comentó que uno de esos era una serie de televisión que saldrá muy pronto y también una película de Marvel que pues ella no puede hablar mucho de eso porque pues obviamente por cláusulas de confidencialidad no se puede, pero pues eventualmente sabremos cuando salgan avances o anuncios porque Amber pues ha estado metida mucho en el universo cinematográfico de Marvel. A mí se me olvidó mencionarles que ella no solo trabajó en Guardianes de la Galaxia Volumen 3, sino también trabajó en el especial navideño de los Guardianes y también en la serie Echo, que se estrenó a principios del 2024. Y pues también está trabajando en proyectos personales, moviéndose en muchas cosas, en algunas cosas pendientes, pero pues ella todavía no nos puede comentar lo que le depara el futuro a esta gran artista de maquillaje. Y también ella aprovecha y sacó su podcast Beyond the Makeup Chair, donde nos habla de sus experiencias en producciones de televisión y cine desde el punto de vista de un artista de maquillaje. Entonces, este podcast lo pueden encontrar en las redes de Amber Michael, en su Instagram, en su YouTube, y realmente si tienen la oportunidad, chéquenlo porque es un podcast que les va a dar muchos tipsitos que les va a servir, especialmente si ustedes también están metidos en la industria del cine como nosotros. So, Amber, in the name of the ETREUM Horror Film Fest, we want to thank you very much for coming here to speak about your experiences. Um, it's really been a wonderful time with you, with these anecdotes and with all of the experience you've said so far. Before we go, can you give at least a tip to those who are beginning with this career in makeup art and FX? Because there are lots of people that are very excited to be part of this world, but some of them may be a bit down because of the advancement of digital effects, and that sometimes makeup effects may be seen as obsolete, but in reality, it is not because it's very essential, especially if you're going to transform, let's say, Stellan Skarsgård in a very fat guy, or Tim Curry into a 6 foot tall demon. I mean, it's like it's something that is very essential. And just like with what we've seen with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, is that you that those designs of the aliens stick up with you because they were worn by actual actors and stunt people. So that's something very essential. So, what kind of tips would you give to someone who is very passionate about this, but it's not very sure and probably needs to get some motivation in order to pursue this career?
Sure. It's not lost on me that it is a very strange time. But there are two things that I find encouraging. The main thing is that studios aside and major corporations aside, the people who are the heart of film production, the actors, the directors, makeup, the whole crew, we are the soul of the art. And the people who got into this industry got into it because of that soul. At the end of the day, that's the reason why I think a lot of us got into it. And I think that it is evident with people looking at photography created by AI, art created by AI. The thing that's missing is the soul. And I think that I'm very thankful for people like James Gunn, who is a very practical effects forward guy and could have done everything VFX. But when you watch a film like that, there's something missing. And I think that the pendulum always swings. And just like when CGI came out and we had this feeling again of, well, they're not going to need makeup artists, they're not going to need special effects artists, they could literally do everything in CGI. And then they went that way and they were doing just massive amounts of really terrible CGI. And people looked at that and they were like, this is awful. And then the pendulum kind of came back to a central place where we work hand in hand now with VFX in such a beautiful and complementary way. And I think that there is a place for technology to continue to evolve and to grow. But as long as humans are human, we will always seek out that soul connection. And that will always be the thing that makes us recognize ourselves in the art. So I think as far as that's concerned, as long as I think in my lifetime it will still continue. I can't speak to the future. Who knows what apocalyptic nonsense we'll get into. But for me, that's what I really take, heart in, is that the soul is what really drives art. And that's really at the end of the day what filmmaking is. And maybe I'm just a romantic about it, but that I think that there's something to be said about keeping the human soul in the creativity. And actors prefer to, there are some actors who are fine with walking in, making a buck. It's everything's on green screen. They're wearing a weird suit with dots all over it. Like, but honestly, people want to be in a tangible world where they can look around and actually engage with the people and the things that they're acting with. And yeah, so that's that. But in for people who are passionate about this, I say continue to do it and to continue to design your own characters and be inspired by art around you and films that inspire you and artists who inspire you, and continue to make your own way. If there's not people out there who you think are going to employ you, be the next generation of filmmakers who are going to say, fuck AI, fuck not, if I cannot say that word, forget AI, forget the digital things, and I'm going to do it practically, and I'm going to continue to bear this torch and yeah, take up the reins and create your own art.
Those are really beautiful words, Amber. And yeah, fuck AI. Entonces, Amber, bueno, la última pregunta que le hice a Amber antes de terminar es básicamente, ¿qué consejos le darías a futuros artistas que quieren emprender este trabajo del maquillaje, pero que tal vez se sientan un poco desmotivados por los avances en la tecnología y el constante uso del CGI para el diseño de personajes fantásticos? Pero ella dijo algo que me pareció muy bonito, y es justamente que el maquillaje es parte del alma del personaje, y es algo muy hermoso poder tener la capacidad de caminar en un set y poder tocar, poder sentir el ambiente, los elementos de utilería, poder ver al actor y a la actriz personificados en este personaje que con mucho esfuerzo de los artistas de maquillaje pues lograron transformar para el deleite de nosotros los espectadores. Entonces, ella dice que aún en esta época, cuando el pensamiento corporativo a veces quiere irse a la fácil para crear cosas en computadoras o con inteligencias artificiales para ahorrarse el dineral de contratar talentosos artistas de efectos especiales o de maquillaje, pues que al final del día el efecto del maquillaje es algo con el que va a conectar muchas personas. Y al final del día, pues que se joda la inteligencia artificial, eh, sigan persiguiendo sus sueños, que se inspiren, que sigan creando, que aun cuando no les den el chance para poder brillar, ustedes sean la siguiente generación que tenga que pase la antorcha y pueda ser aquella que diga si se puede seguir haciendo esto. Ella dice que, bueno, tal vez sea un poco romántica con respecto a esa visión, pero que en parte es necesario tener esa pasión y ese romance por el arte, porque es un arte muy puro, muy bello y que ciertamente no se puede dejar perder. Así que adelante, sigan creando. So, Amber, thank you one more time for your time. It's an honor to have you as our guest at the fourth ETREUM Horror Film Fest. It certainly was a real pleasure speaking to you again after a long time. Um, but certainly we'll be very excited to see what comes next from your body of work. It is really cool to see that a lot of makeup artists are still working really hard today to give us these incredible transformations. So, last thing, please provide us with your social media and a little greeting to our Colombian fans out there. And we hope to see you soon in person because we definitely want to hear more stories from you because I'm sure that you have a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. I am honored to have been asked to do this. I love doing this type of thing. I love to talk. So, you can find me on all social media platforms at Amber Michael Art. And my podcast is on currently on Spotify and on YouTube at Beyond the Makeup Chair podcast. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Amber. Ella nos dice que pueden encontrarla en todas sus redes sociales como Amber Michael Art y el podcast Beyond the Makeup Chair lo pueden encontrar en Spotify y en YouTube. Lo pueden encontrar ahí totalmente gratis para aquellos que quieran checar las anécdotas que nos puede ofrecer esta bellísima y talentosa artista de maquillaje y efectos especiales. So, that's it for today. Thank you once again for being part of this festival. With this, we wrap up ETREUM Horror Film Fest Colombia 2024. We'll see you in 2025 with more horror, more sci-fi, more fantasy, and more animation. Thank you once again to all the people that submitted your work. We received hundreds of films and short films from around 100 countries. It was very hard to choose, but we chose the best. And I hope that everybody from here to Argentina to Mexico to Spain had enjoyed all of the offerings we had for you on this ETREUM Horror Film Fest 2024. And remember that this panel will be uploaded on today, June the 16th at 8 p.m. Colombian time. So you will have this full interview with the wonderful Amber Michael. So thank you, Amber, once again. I hope to see you soon. We hope to see you soon and take care.
Bye.
Bye.